here we are after 9 long and grueling months, which has seen the Formula One teams going all over the world in their pursuit of World Championship points, coming finally to round 16 here in South Australia, the crucial race, the Australian Grand Prix, which will decide who is to be the 1986 World Champion. And now that battle is just between 3 men. The man who leads, who has only to finish third today, and the other 2 who have to win to hold the title. On the right, Nigel Mansell, the British driver with the moustache, the current points leader. All he has to do today is finish third. Alain Prost, the little hook-nosed Frenchman in the middle, the reigning world champion. And on the left in the white, Nelson Piquet. He's won the championship title twice before. He's Nigel Mansell's teammate. Well, we've had 2 enthralling days of qualifying on this tight and difficult round-the-houses Adelaide circuit, and the man who dominated both those days, there he is, Nigel Mansell. The championship points leader has set the fastest ever lap round the Adelaide circuit, 1 minute 18.403 seconds. He's already had 5 wins this year. He had a disastrous race 2 weeks ago in Mexico when he made a bad start but climbed back to finish 5th, and he knows that he only has to finish 3rd. Nelson Piquet, on the other hand, his teammate, joining him on the front row, has to win the race. And Mansell has to finish lower than 3rd for Piquet to be able to take his 3rd World Championship title. So the Brazilian has got it all to do, but he's very pleased to be on the front row. 2 Williams Hondas at the front, then 3rd quickest, Ayrton Senna, having his last race with Renault power in the Lotus. He'll have a Honda engine next year with Lotus. He's out of the championship hunt now, only 55 points, and that's not enough for him to get to the top. But he has had 2 wins this year. He wants to make it 3 today. And on the outside of the second row, little Alain Prost, the most professional of all the drivers, the current reigning champion, only 3 wins this year, but a lot of consistent point-scoring finishes. And like Piquet, he has to win to be champion, and Mansell must finish lower than 3rd. So Prost and Piquet both have a difficult task. Of course, this race isn't just about the World Championship. There's a Grand Prix to be fought over, and René Arnoux has done well in qualifying to take the inside position on row 3. His best finish so far this year, right at the beginning of the season, 4th in Brazil, but he wants to do better today, and of course he also having his last race with Renault power. Then Gerhard Berger, the superb victor of the last race 2 weeks ago in Mexico. He is due to leave the Benetton team after this race. He goes to Ferrari next year, and the young, tall Austrian, very much a man to watch for 1987. The field now are starting to move away on their final warm-up lap. Let's go on down the grid. The 4th row, Keke Rosberg, 7th fastest in qualifying, his final Grand Prix, because he retires not only from the McLaren team, but from motor racing altogether after this race. And the other Ligier Renault of Philippe Alliot, 8th quickest. There are the pictures that we're going to get from one of 2 cars carrying a camera in this race. That's Patrick Tambay in the Beatrice Lola. Meanwhile, row 5 is Michele Alboretto's Ferrari and Philipp Streff in the faster of the 2 Tyrrells. Row 6, De Cesaris's Minardi and Stefan Johansson's Ferrari. Row 7, Theo Fabi's Benetton and Johnny Dumfries in his Lotus. And there is Johnny Dumfries, because he's the other man who's going to carry a camera for us during this race. He's warming his tyres up. You see, he swerves from side to side to get some heat into the tyres, because he'll want the rubber to be as warm as possible right from the very first lap. So the 26-car field coming back onto the grid to take up their starting positions. It's an 82-lap race, a 2.4-mile circuit, and at the sort of average speeds that we can expect here, just around the 100-mile-an-hour mark, the race is expected to go the full 2-hour distance. A long and grueling and difficult race on this very demanding street circuit, a circuit which of course is still comparatively new to everybody, only used for the first time last year. Slightly threatening looking weather. It's cool, it's overcast. We have had a threat of rain, which mercifully now seems to be holding off. Look at the heat coming off those engines as the engines rev. And the lights are green, the field moves away, Mansell moves well, Rosberg makes a sensational start, Senna is coming up very quickly indeed, but it's Mansell from Senna from Piquet. A tremendous start by Rosberg, who is fourth. Prost is in fifth place, but already I think at the front the lead has changed because Senna is up alongside. Senna goes inside Mansell. Ayrton Senna now leads. Mansell loses second place to Piquet. So it's Senna, Piquet, Mansell, Rosberg and Prost. And Rosberg goes by Mansell as well. Mansell drops to fourth. So it's Ayrton Senna leading for Lotus. It's Piquet's Williams second. It's Rosberg after a sensational start coming up into third place. Mansell is fourth, Prost is fifth. There's Gerhard Berger in sixth place in the Benetton. Seventh is the Ligier of René Arnoux, but Mansell seems to be hanging back a little bit. And Piquet makes a challenge. Piquet alongside Ayrton Senna, and Piquet goes through. Nelson Piquet leads this first lap of the Australian Grand Prix, takes a very tight line into that right-hander, locks a brake, but it's all okay. And Senna, slipping back a little bit, is still in second place. Keke Rosberg in a magnificent third. In fourth place, it's still Nigel Mansell, although he's got Alain Prost clambering all over him. Prost is fifth, Gerhard Berger is sixth. Those are the top six, so the three championship contenders are running in first, fourth and fifth places. The two interlopers are Ayrton Senna second and Keke Rosberg third. It's looking good for Piquet, and Nigel Mansell is in a handy fourth place. Meanwhile, you may have seen in that crowded start a problem for Michele Alboreto, who went almost over the top of René Arnoux' Ligier. Alboreto is now limping back to the pits. I think his rear suspension is damaged after that little bit of aerobatics. And there is René Arnoux, which was the car that he hit. René Arnoux in the pits, they're changing his tyres. Meanwhile, the battle well and truly on for second place between Ayrton Senna and Keke Rosberg. Rosberg pushing Senna very, very hard indeed. Nelson Piquet has made a superb break. Nelson Piquet running away with the race at the front. Senna doing everything he can to hold off Rosberg. Mansell has pulled just half a second away from Alain Prost. Berger is still sixth, but we've got a new second man because Rosberg goes down the inside of Ayrton Senna into that tight right-hander. Senna has to let him go. So now it's Piquet first, Rosberg second, Senna third, Mansell fourth, Prost fifth, Berger sixth on the second lap. And already Rosberg pulling well away from Senna. He's starting, I'm sure, to close on Piquet. Piquet won't like that at all because remember, Piquet has to win this race to keep his World Championship hopes alive. Mansell, meanwhile, is now closing on Senna. It's Senna who's slipping back, it's Mansell who's moving up, and that'll please Mansell because, as we've said before, all Nigel Mansell has to do, whatever happens in front of him, whoever wins the race, all Nigel Mansell has to do is finish third, and he is the champion. Piquet is doing all that he can do. He's out in front. Alain Prost, by contrast, is playing a waiting game at this stage, but we've so often seen Alain Prost start cautiously, plan his race strategy, and then start to go once the race has settled into a pattern. Well, the pattern has been set by Nelson Piquet, who's out in front, but Keke Rosberg at the moment is definitely the quickest man on the circuit. It's Rosberg who's closing on Piquet. Piquet glances in his mirror as they go down the long straight up to 200 miles an hour on that long straight before braking hard, turning into the right-hander. That's Ginzani's Azella. He's out of the race already. Alboreto too has retired, although René Arnoux has rejoined with fresh tyres right at the back of the race. So Piquet piling on the pressure, trying to shake off the determined Keke Rosberg, and it's Keke Rosberg who wants to win his final Grand Prix. And also, of course, if Rosberg can pass Piquet, then there may well be some tactics between Rosberg and Prost. If Rosberg is in front, he's going to be able to help Prost to get to the front. Senna, meanwhile, has a little trio of cars for third place. Senna, Mansell and Prost. And Rosberg all the time winding in Piquet, clipping those curves, the determined Finn, wanting to go out on a high. He's won the World Championship once in his career, and he wants to finish what has been a 9-year spell in Formula One on a high note. And visibly, Rosberg is closer to Piquet all the time. You get an idea of what constant hard work this Adelaide circuit is. Beautifully organised by the Australians, just like last year. And look at Mansell. We just had a glimpse of Mansell tucked right into the slipstream, and there he goes. Senna loses third place. Mansell gets third place. Prost is still fifth. Berger is still sixth. But that's Mansell up into third place, the place he wants to keep to the end. That's all he needs to do to take the title, and he's there already. So Mansell up to third, and the man who's worrying Mansell is Alain Prost. I think Nigel feels quite happy about keeping Ayrton Senna behind him, but it's Alain Prost, who so often has started slowly and then put on the pressure, who's a man to worry about for Mansell. You can see the vortices coming off the rear wings in this cool and still slightly threatening weather here in Adelaide, although the rain so far seems to be holding off. Mansell twitching over the bumps, moving away from Senna a little bit. Still, it's Piquet leading. Still, it's Rosberg in second place. Mansell, the new third man. Senna down to fourth. Prost fifth. Berger sixth. And these 6 cars have detached themselves from the rest of the field. Seventh at the moment is the Tyrrell of Philippe Streff. Philippe Alliot is 8th in his Ligier, coming up into 9th place. Stefan Johansson's Ferrari ahead of Alan Jones. Alan Jones very anxious to go well in front of his home crowd, and he's currently 10th. But we've got a battle for the lead on our hands. Piquet now struggling to stay ahead of the very determined Keke Rosberg. Keke Rosberg isn't driving like a man who's about to retire. He's driving like a man going for his first World Championship title. Rosberg charging. Remember, he started from 7th place on the grid. It's taken him very little time to get right up to grapple with the race leader Nelson Piquet. As they come down the start-finish straight once more, Piquet now responding to the challenge. I think Piquet's wound on a little bit more turbo boost. Keke Rosberg up the curbs. Piquet flinging his Williams through the streets of Adelaide. A tremendous battle between 2 ex-world champions, but for Piquet, this could be the race when he becomes the world champion once again. The third place battle is left well behind. They're almost 9 seconds down, Mansell and then Senna and Prost, with Senna still holding on to that 4th place, but just by 0.6 of a second from Alain Prost. Prost looking for a way past the Lotus. The 3 championship contenders, therefore, now in 1st, 3rd and 5th places, but it's the man who's in 3rd place, Nigel Mansell, who, if they finish on those points, would be the championship leader. Piquet must win this race, but Piquet's trying to stop him. There's Mansell in 3rd place, Senna 4th. Prost looking very close indeed to Senna in 5th place. Prost in the slipstream looking for a way past him. Has a little look at the inside as they go hard on the brakes from 200 miles an hour into that tight right-hander. Mansell, Senna and Prost 3rd, 4th and 5th. And Mansell, I'm sure, will hope that Senna does hold Prost off. And in fact, Senna does pull away a little bit from Prost. So Prost, having failed in that little attempt to get into 4th place, now hangs back a little bit and is going to bide his time once more. Meanwhile, the Mexican Grand Prix winner Gerhard Berger is still there in the green Benetton in 6th place, very much keeping in contact with the leaders. And of course, tyre wear, rather an unknown quantity here at Adelaide. They've only had 1 race here before. Keke Rosberg, meanwhile, that's acknowledgement of the speed with which he's come up the field. Keke Rosberg, the new lap record holder. And he's taken the lead. Keke Rosberg has passed Nelson Piquet. There he is. The McLaren leads the race. Keke Rosberg has come all the way up to lead, and Nelson Piquet is down in 2nd place. It's almost as though Piquet has decided he's used as much turbo boost as he dare to keep ahead of the flying Finn. He's worried perhaps about fuel consumption. I understand from the Williams pit that they were doing their calculations before the race very, very carefully. They're not quite sure how rapidly on this rather tight circuit with a full 2-hour race, how quickly the cars are going to use their fuel. And there's another McLaren moving up because Alain Prost has finally passed Ayrton Senna. There is Nigel Mansell in third place in the number 5 Williams, and coming into fourth place now, car number 1, which is the reigning champion Alain Prost. Ayrton Senna down to 5th. Gerhard Berger is still in 6th place. So the championship challengers, the 3 men with a chance for the title, are currently in 2nd, 3rd and 4th places, and it's Keke Rosberg who is the wild card. Rosberg leading, Piquet 2nd, Mansell 3rd, Prost 4th. A fascinating race here on this very demanding circuit of Adelaide. And Piquet twitching his way around that right-hander, anxious not to let Rosberg get too far out of reach. He may be wondering himself about Rosberg's use of fuel or use of tyres, because this year Rosberg has rather built up a reputation for being a man who goes faster than perhaps his fuel or his tyres allow. And we've seen Rosberg running out of petrol in the closing stages. We've seen Rosberg punish his tyres in the early stages of the race when the cars are heavy with a load of fuel. But Rosberg has broken his own lap record very early in the race. Rosberg, of course, you will remember, won this race this time last year when he was driving for the Williams team. And Rosberg obviously very happy on a street circuit and really enjoying himself, leading his final Grand Prix, the final Grand Prix of a long and illustrious Formula One career. Rosberg still increasing this lead then, as we watch Johnny Dumfries working away in the cockpit of Lotus number 11 with the onboard camera looking over his right shoulder, his right arm, moving the gear lever up and down the gearbox. He's now going down that straight, down the gearbox as he moves into that left-right flick. That was the chicane. He's now going through the left kink that takes him on to Wakefield Street, a fast section, then a tight right-hander that follows it. Always these beckoning walls here. You can't afford to make the slightest mistake because, of course, the sort of little moment that could just put a wheel on the grass on a conventional circuit, on a street circuit like Adelaide or like Detroit or like Monte Carlo, can spell real disaster. A little twitch there through that right-hand kink. He's now coming to the fastest part of the circuit, because after this next right-hand curve now, we're now on the long straight that takes us all the way down to the racecourse section, and now in top gear Johnny Dumfries will be reaching 200 miles an hour by the time he gets now onto the brakes all the way down the gearbox. A very tight right-hander which takes him into the racecourse section, and you can see how constantly these men are working on and off the power, twitching the wheel, using the gear lever, on through the racecourse section, with the start-finish area now almost in sight. Coming to the Foster's corner, which will take him onto the start-finish straight once more. Johnny Dumfries completes another lap in the Lotus Renault over the start-finish line. And there's what happens if you do touch the walls. That's Alessandro Nannini's Minardi, and the car is right on the apex of a right-hander, or what's left of the car, with one of its front wheels completely off and all of the other wheels pointing in quite the wrong direction. We gather that Nannini is unhurt, but his car comprehensively out of the race. Meanwhile, already the leaders are lapping the tail-enders. René Arnoux-Ligier has just been lapped by Keke Rosberg, the leader. And here's the third-place battle, and there's a new third-place man. Alain Prost has gone ahead of Nigel Mansell. Now we see Alain Prost starting to pile on the pressure. This is a typical Alain Prost race strategy, and he's put his McLaren ahead of Nigel Mansell. And, of course, Mansell knows that provided Keke Rosberg stays there in front, his World Championship title is safe wherever he finishes. But I would guess that Keke Rosberg, dearly though he wants to win his final Grand Prix, if he has his teammate in second place and he is leading, Nigel Mansell is down in fourth place and isn't in that crucial third place that he needs to be sure of the championship, I would guess that Keke Rosberg will do the gentlemanly thing by his teammate and will probably let Alain Prost come by. So Nigel Mansell needs to start worrying now. Alain Prost through to third place. Nelson Piquet in second place. The yellow flags are waving because Nannini's car is still in a very dangerous position on the track. But Mansell needs to start worrying because Piquet is second, Prost is third. He is down in fourth place, even though Keke Rosberg is still leading the race. Ayrton Senna still fifth, Gerhard Berger still sixth, but all attention is on the first four cars, which includes the 3 championship challengers. Behind Berger in 7th place now is Stefan Johansson's Ferrari. Philip Streff's Tyrrell has dropped to 8th. Up to 9th has come Alan Jones in the Lola. And in 10th place, Theo Fabi in the other Benetton. 11th is Johnny Dumfries, who we've just done a lap with in the Lotus. In 12th place, it's Riccardo Patresi's Brabham. 13th is Martin Brundle's Tyrrell. And in 14th place, down to 14th has gone Philippe Alliot, who was very much better placed than that earlier on. Alain Prost is leaving Nigel Mansell far behind, and Mansell at the moment seems prepared to let him go. Of course, as we try to work out all the permutations, it may well be that Mansell feels that Rosberg will stay out there in front and win the race and he'll be safe, and if any of these people retire in front of him, then Mansell will then be third. He's completely unthreatened by Ayrton Senna, who's in a distant 5th place at the moment. Meanwhile, second man Nelson Piquet now has the task of lapping René Arnoux, who, I don't know if he was cleaning his visor then or giving a little signal to Piquet, but Piquet does go past him at the end of the long straight before they turn sharp right into the racecourse area. And Piquet not getting away from René Arnoux very quickly. Arnoux, of course, having been delayed at the start because of that accident with Michele Alboreto, and Alboreto having retired. The only Ferrari in the race, therefore, is Stefan Johansson's in 7th place. Out of the first gear, Foster's comes Piquet, and look how close Prost is getting. So Piquet, far from being able to keep up with McLaren number 2, which is leading the race, is, I think, soon going to come under pressure from McLaren number 1 in 3rd place, and that is Alain Prost. So the very determined Prost is absolutely flying, and remember that if Prost can get in front of Piquet, and then the McLaren pit can persuade Keke Rosberg to ease off and let Prost pass him, then Prost could end up champion. But we've got a very, very long way to go yet. We've got rubber to worry about, we've got fuel to worry about, almost anything can happen. The blue flag given there for René Arnoux, but Prost not making any effort to pass him at this stage. And there you see the gaps. 8.8 seconds is the gap between Rosberg and Piquet. 3 seconds, almost exactly, the gap between Piquet and Prost. Mansell, meanwhile, is a further 7 seconds down. And then Senna and Johansson, our new 6th man, are a long way further back. Stefan Johansson's Ferrari has now passed Gerhard Berger. And we've got one of the Benettons in the pits, but it's not Berger, it's Fabi. Theo Fabi coming in for an early pit stop, and we also saw a glimpse of a Lola flashing down the pit lane there as well, but away goes Theo Fabi, slightly slow getting underway. It was a 13.9 second pit stop. Fabi is out on his fresh tyres, and meanwhile Piquet is now well and truly stuck. He's behind Christian Danner. He passes Danner, but already Prost is with him. So as they work their way through those back markers, that's Alan Jones. Alan Jones's Lola is smoking badly. A glimpse of Philip Streff, who's still well placed in the top 8. Alan Jones was 8th in the Lola, but the car is smoking badly. In fact, it's leaking oil. Alan Jones's race is obviously run. This is a replay of him just passing Berger, but look at the back of the car. It's pouring smoke, it's pouring oil. That oil is right on the road, and that's Johnny Dumfries who spun off on it. Johnny Dumfries in the camera car, just getting going again, restarting, having spun off on Alan Jones's oil. In fact, we're going to see a replay. This is going to be interesting. Down the straight he goes, on the brakes, going on the inside, locks up the front wheel and spins. The tail goes away from him onto opposite lock. Past goes Riccardo Patresi's Brabham, I think that was. And while Dumfries sorts it out, we go back now to this tremendous battle, which is now for 2nd place. While Keke Rosberg leads the Australian Grand Prix, Nelson Piquet now has his mirrors full of the irrepressible Alain Prost, who is right on Piquet's tail. The battle for second between two of the three men who could win this World Championship. Nelson Piquet in Williams Honda number 6, Alain Prost in McLaren tag number 1. Of course, this isn't a circuit where overtaking is particularly easy, but there's a nice long straight if Prost can get a run on Piquet, and as usual, we wonder whether Piquet will be adjusting his turbo boost control, using a little bit more fuel, sacrificing it to remain out of reach of Alain Prost, and indeed that's what he seems to be doing, because he pulls away a little bit from Alain Prost. There you see the gaps at the moment, 14.2 seconds from Rosberg to Piquet. Piquet and Prost within 0.6 of a second of each other, and then Nigel Mansell a further 5 seconds down. Ayrton Senna a long way distance, Stefan Johansson still 6th in the Ferrari, but Nigel Mansell in 4th place, and he ought really to have the insurance of being in the top 3. And I don't think Nigel Mansell will be terribly happy about that, but perhaps he hopes that the battle between his teammate Nelson Piquet and Alain Prost in the McLaren will either wear their tyres out more quickly than expected, or indeed force either of them to use up more fuel than they should. A lot of question marks about tyres in this race. We don't yet know whether the front runners are going to try and do the entire race on the set of tyres they started on. That was really what won the Mexican Grand Prix for Gerhard Berger, who was able to make his Pirellis last the full distance. By contrast, Nelson Piquet needed 3 pit stops for tyres. Alain Prost only needed 1. All of these cars on Goodyears, and once again Piquet seems to be pulling away a little bit from Alain Prost. They're followed by the Arrows of Christian Danner, whom they've both lapped, the Arrows BMW. And still Piquet striving to move away from Prost, and all this time, almost forgotten, Keke Rosberg out of the championship hunt himself, but very much dominating the Australian Grand Prix here at Adelaide. Philippe Alliot soon to be lapped in his Ligier. You can see the puffs of flame from Prost's exhaust pipes as he goes all the way down to bottom gear for the tight right-hander, Foster's corner, which takes them onto the start-finish straight. Past the abandoned Azella of Ginzani, which has been parked there almost since the very beginning of the race, and still they wind in Philippe Alliot's Ligier. Oh, and he spun! Piquet spins on that oil. Nelson Piquet has spun, and Mansell goes through to that 3rd place that he wants. That was a very, very significant moment indeed. This circuit is very slippery. There's an awful lot of oil, and just as Piquet was passing a back marker, he lost the car. Coming back onto the circuit, he very nearly collected his own teammate Nigel Mansell, who himself was busy passing a back marker, but that has changed the whole situation dramatically, because we've now got McLaren first, Keke Rosberg, McLaren second, Alain Prost, Williams Honda third, Nigel Mansell, and Williams Honda fourth, Nelson Piquet. And that means that now Alain Prost can perhaps take advantage of his arrangement with Keke Rosberg, and Keke may well slow up and let Prost by. But I don't think that's going to happen for a while, because we're still in the early stages of this race. Nigel Mansell is still there in the top 3, so an awful lot can still happen. But it was Nelson Piquet who succumbed to the oil. The circuit is very, very slippery indeed. A lot of the oil has come from the Ford engine in the back of Alan Jones's Lola, which has blown. Jones is out of the race, and a lot of his oil is on the circuit. Look at Rosberg's style as he flicks the number 2 McLaren from side to side, from curb to curb. He's starting to wind in Philipp Streff, and that's an indication of how quickly he's been going. But even more quick is Alain Prost, because Prost is the new lap record holder. Alain Prost really starting to put the hammer down And Rosberg, I think, will be easing off a little bit now. He's got a comfortable lead. But there is Prost with lots of back markers ahead of him, lots of back markers between himself and his teammate Keke Rosberg. But Prost is now in what looks like a comfortable second place. There's our third man, Nigel Mansell, not very far behind him. Mansell's teammate, Nelson Piquet, and Piquet will not like running behind Nigel Mansell one little bit. What a race of changing fortunes this has been. The man who's leading started in the 7th grid position. Nelson Piquet was the leader. Nigel Mansell was the initial leader off the start line. Ayrton Senna was a leader, but now it's first Rosberg, second Prost, third Mansell, fourth Piquet, with still Ayrton Senna in 5th place and Stefan Johansson's Ferrari 6th. Philip Streff is now in 7th place, soon to be lapped by the leader, 8th, and he has been lapped. Riccardo Patrese Brabham. Martin Brundle's going extremely well now. He's come up to 9th place, and he was right down in 16th place at the start, so he's going well. And 10th now, we've got Gerhard Berger. Poor Gerhard Berger has slipped right down to 10th place. He's running just ahead of Derek Warwick's Brabham, which is 11th. 12th now is Philippe Alliot, another car that was much higher up in the early stages, Alliot's Ligier. And then we've got Thierry Boutsen and Jonathan Palmer in the Zach Speed. But Alain Prost, the fastest man on the circuit at the moment, the new lap record holder, although as the fuel loads continue to get lighter, I have a suspicion that that lap record isn't going to last for very long. And already the speed's considerably quicker than they were in this race last year, when Rosberg set a lap record in 1 minute 23.778. Now Prost is going to have to use all his skill to work his way through these back markers without losing his rhythm. Derek Warwick's Brabham is the next car he has to lap, and while retaining his smooth flow, Prost is going to have to work his way through this traffic and still maintain the advantage that he's pulling out over the two Williams Hondas behind him. There's Johnny Dumfries. We're seeing Johnny Dumfries from the outside for a change. Dumfries on the tail of a Zach Speed. He's now lapped the Zach Speed, and he's going storming away from the start-finish area and down through the chicane. Flick left, flick right. Try to avoid the curbs, and you can see in these harshly sprung Formula One cars just how punishing the curbs are when you hit them. Clipping that apex very neatly, then the left flick, hard on the power, off the power for that right-hander, away down a short straight, under the Ford bridge, working away at the gear lever, left and then right flick. And there you see Dumfries sitting still on the tail of that Zach Speed. He hasn't lapped it yet. In fact, it's not a car to lap, it's Jonathan Palmer's Zach Speed. It's not Rottengatter as we thought at first, it's Jonathan Palmer's Zach Speed, and that's 14th place that these two are battling over, because having had that spin on Alan Jones's oil, he lost a place, but he's now alongside it. He's taking Palmer on the inside. He goes, and this is Prost now. Alain Prost coming into the pits for a tyre change. It's a little bit early, and the car's very low. They can't get the jack under it. I think one of those front tyres was punctured, and finally they lift the car onto the jack. That delayed matters quite considerably. That was quite a long stop for Alain Prost. He spins his wheels as he goes away from the pits and back into the race. But I think Prost had a puncture on one of his front tyres, so that when the car came into the pits, it was so low at the front that the mechanic on the front jack couldn't get his jack underneath. And that wasted precious seconds. So that pit stop, instead of taking 8 or 9 seconds as it should have done, took 16.5 by our unofficial hand timing here. So an extra 8 seconds lost. Prost has made his pit stop. We don't even know whether he was intending to stop for rubber, but after 33 laps he had to stop. There's Rottengatter's Zach Speed. So Zach Speed lose a car. Jonathan Palmer still out there, although he's just lost 14th place to Johnny Dumfries, as we saw dramatically from Dumfries' cockpit, but the Dutchman Hugh Brottengatter out. And meanwhile, as Keke Rosberg leads the race, Alain Prost has had to come in for an early tyre stop because of a puncture, and that has dropped Prost to 4th place. So, while Keke Rosberg still leads, the Williams Hondas are now in 2nd and 3rd places. Nigel Mansell is 2nd, Nelson Piquet is 3rd. Alain Prost drops to 4th, with Ayrton Senna still in 5th place. 6th, and now lapped by the flying Rosberg, is the Ferrari of Stefan Johansson. Meanwhile, we watch Philippe Alliot and Patrick Tombay's Lola, and they're now about to be lapped again by the leader as Prost warms up those new tyres and gets stuck back into the battle to move up from 4th place, with the Williams Hondas of Piquet and Mansell tantalisingly ahead of him. The big question is, was Prost going to stop for fresh tyres anyway? Are the Williams Hondas of Mansell and Piquet intending to stop for fresh tyres, or are they trying to do the full distance on one set? That's Theo Fabi about to be lapped in his Benetton by the flying McLaren of Prost. And Fabi turns into the right-hander after the long straight, moves over to the side of the road. Prost goes smartly through and on his way, but Prost has an empty road ahead of him, no sign of the two Williams Hondas, which are now running extremely close. In fact, Nelson Piquet is putting on a spurt. It's Nelson Piquet who's the new lap record holder now, and Piquet responding to the challenge. Into the pits, meanwhile, comes Theo Fabi. That's a 2nd stop for him because he was an early man to stop for tyres, you'll remember. Theo Fabi in for yet another set of Pirellis, but I said that Piquet was getting close to Mansell, and indeed he is. This is now the battle for 2nd place. They both of them just lapped the Tyrrell of Philipp Streff. Now, this is a very interesting situation. What should Mansell do? He's under real pressure from Piquet. Piquet will be pushing him into using too much fuel, using too much rubber. He's in 2nd place, is Mansell. He doesn't mind being in 3rd place. Is he going to let Piquet by? Bearing in mind that, of course, there's always the worry of Alain Prost on fresh rubber catching these two up. Well, Piquet it is who's really storming. Piquet currently the lap record holder, and Piquet trying to push Nigel Mansell into a mistake on what is an extremely slippery circuit now. The bumps of Adelaide are coated with oil and rubber. Mansell mustn't make a mistake now, even if it means letting the determined Piquet past. McLaren 1st, Williams Honda 2nd, Williams Honda 3rd, McLaren 4th, Lotus Renault 5th, Ferrari 6th. And it's interesting that Philipp Streff in that white Tyrrell that is following those two Williams Hondas is not getting particularly left behind. So Mansell, now under pressure from Piquet, is, I would think, easing off a little bit. It's often the case when you're driving defensively, when you're trying to keep the door shut, when there's somebody behind you that you don't want to let past, then your lap times do get longer. And Philipp Streff in the Tyrrell having no difficulty in staying with these two Williams Hondas, and I think Piquet's going to make a charge now. Ooh, a big twitch there from Piquet. In bottom gear, he put the power on a bit hard, but now he's coming down the inside and he goes through. Nelson Piquet, under braking for that chicane, goes through and at once rockets away from Nigel Mansell. And Mansell seems to want to do nothing at all about it. In fact, Mansell definitely slowing because Philipp Streff is right there with him. We're going to see Piquet's lunge once more. He goes neatly around Mansell as they flick into the left-right of the chicane. And Mansell now has Philipp Streff on his tail. Streff, remember, is a lap down. He's currently running in 8th place as Berger's car gets wheeled away. That's a great shame. The Mexican Grand Prix winner out of the Australian Grand Prix. Meanwhile, Piquet now closing on Jonathan Palmer in the Zakspeed, who will be the next car to be lapped. Ahead of them, it's Fabi, who's had a couple of pit stops himself. and is well down the field. And as they come up to these back markers, Mansell closes back up to Piquet once more. And that's De Cesaris, Andrea De Cesaris in trouble with his Minardi, his teammate, of course, Nannini, already comprehensively out of the race with the most enormous accident, which we're very happy to report didn't damage the driver at all. Past Palmer goes Piquet into the chicane, just where he overtook Mansell last time. Mansell also goes past Jonathan Palmer, and Mansell seems to have recovered his flow now, having gone off a little bit for a lap when Piquet went by, having had a slightly slower lap. It may well be that Mansell was worried about his tyres there and decided to clean them a little bit, to have a gentle lap to let his tyres recover. Meanwhile, you'll see from the caption that we've got a new fifth man. Ayrton Senna is slipping down the field. In fact, Ayrton Senna has stopped. That's Ayrton Senna, crash helmet already off, getting out of his smoking Lotus. He'd already lost fifth place to Stefan Johansson's Ferrari. Patrick Tambay in the pits for fresh tyres. Out of the pits goes Tambay, watched by our camera. The Lola accelerating hard out of the pits, but meanwhile Ayrton Senna is out of the race. And now we follow Patrick Tambay getting those tyres warmed up, moving up through the gears. The car that's just passed him is our other camera car, that of Johnny Dumfries. And it's interesting that the first half lap on fresh tyres is always a bit slow, a bit cautious. The tyres need to be warmed up, although most of the teams now artificially warm them with heating blankets before they go on the car, just to make that extra few split seconds difference. And now, next to be lapped by Nelson Piquet and Nigel Mansell, is the now fifth placed Ferrari of Stefan Johansson, and Mansell is very definitely back with Piquet again, having dropped well back from the Brazilian. Nigel Mansell is right up on Piquet's tail once more. Remember, it's first Keke Rosberg, it's second Nelson Piquet, it's third Nigel Mansell. Piquet laps Stefan Johansson, who sees the blue flag and keeps nicely out of the way. Alain Prost is still fourth, but he has had his tyre stop, and we wonder whether we are going to see tyre stops for the Williams cars. Nigel Mansell elbowing his way past Stefan Johansson to lap him, just as Nelson Piquet locks up a wheel there, going into that tight right-hander that leads them into the racecourse section. And Piquet not able to get away from Mansell at this stage, but once again we wonder whether Piquet used a bit of extra fuel, used a bit of extra boost to get past Mansell, and is now just happy to sit immediately in front of him. Certainly Nelson Piquet has no hope of catching the flying Keke Rosberg, who is storming on his way out in front in the number 2 McLaren. Keke Rosberg looking very comfortable, looking in a class of his own in the Australian Grand Prix. And behind him are the three championship protagonists: Piquet second, Mansell third, and Alain Prost fourth. Certainly the logical, the sensible thing to do would be for Mansell just to guarantee his third place and worry about nothing else at this stage. So important to him is the World Championship title. But Nigel Mansell said before the race he doesn't think that that's the way to go about winning a championship. He's going to drive all out, and if he possibly can, he would like to win the championship by winning the race. Well, we're now around the half-distance mark, and no sign yet of routine tyre stops for these Williams Hondas. There's Rosberg, and he too hasn't had a stop. We understand, incidentally, that the reason why Alain Prost needed his tyre stop was indeed because a front tyre was punctured, and apparently he touched Gerhard Berger's Benetton when lapping it, and that was enough to puncture a tyre. So it may well be that the Goodyear runners are trying to do the full distance on the one set of tyres. Rosberg now coming up to lap one of the Ligiers. It's Philippe Alliot. Rosberg tucked in behind him, waiting his chance. There's the blue flag for Alliot, and Oh, I don't think Alliot meant to do that. He certainly wasn't making it very easy for Rosberg. Rosberg was about to go past him, and then Alliot shut the door. But look at this. This is Prost. This is Prost right up with Nigel Mansell now. Mansell, remember, is in third place. Piquet is in second. And Alain Prost is right on Nigel Mansell's tail. Prost, who's had his pit stop, who's on his fresh rubber, has recovered from fourth place to get back onto the tail of Nigel Mansell, and Mansell won't like that one little bit, because if he can't hold third place, then there's always a worry that either Piquet or Prost will win the race and Mansell will lose the championship. From the helicopter, we watch this battle for third place. Nigel Mansell passing Ayrton Senna's abandoned Lotus. Alain Prost closing right up in these corners, but not getting quite close enough yet to have a challenge at Mansell. But all of this has allowed Nelson Piquet to move away in second place, because, as we said earlier, if you're defending a place, then your lap times tend to get longer. And Mansell has had to let Piquet go while he concentrates on holding off Alain Prost. There's Piquet at the front of the picture, Teo Fabi, who's just been lapped. Mansell weaving down the straight to try and shake off the attentions of Alain Prost. Prost biding his time, always so patient, but very, very close indeed as they come into the racecourse section now. Piquet in second place, suddenly without the attentions of Mansell. Mansell in third place, suddenly with the attentions of Alain Prost. Prost, who started cautiously, who came all the way up to second, who had to have a pit stop because of a punctured tyre, who dropped to fourth and is now right on the tail of third man Mansell once more. Now Mansell's got a problem here because he's got to lap Teo Fabi, and Fabi may well delay him, but no. Past goes Mansell, and right tucked in is Prost. Prost went through at the same time. There was no question of Prost being delayed by lapping Teo Fabi, and Mansell's got a real problem now. I don't know how long Mansell can hold off Alain Prost, who is absolutely charging. I'm sure that Mansell is trying to work out all the championship permutations himself. And that's Rosberg, that's the race leader Rosberg, parking McLaren number 2 out of the car, walking away. A little look at the back. What has happened? Rosberg is out of the race, and that could change the whole complexion of the championship. And this is what happened. Look at that right-hand rear tyre. He's thrown a tread on the straight. He pulls into the side of the road, one rear tyre shredded to pieces, and Rosberg walks away. McLaren number 2 is out of the race. Keke Rosberg's final Grand Prix is over. What a terrible shame, but what that means is that the new race leader is Nelson Piquet. In second place, it's Nigel Mansell, but he's got Alain Prost right on his tail, and he hasn't any more because Prost has gone through. While Nelson Piquet inherits the lead from Rosberg, there is the new second man. Alain Prost has gone back into second place. Nigel Mansell is demoted to third. Now, Mansell will learn from his pit signals that Rosberg is out. In fact, he probably saw Rosberg's car parked by the side of the road. Third place is all he needs to win the championship title, whoever wins the race. So, Piquet leading, Prost up to second, Mansell in the third place, and that's all he needs, and I don't think Nigel will be too concerned about that. Prost on his way then down the straight, and look at Mansell! Mansell's rear tyre explodes! He's fighting for control. Mansell's rear tyre has disintegrated, and Mansell is off down the escape road. And against the wall, Mansell's car comes to a halt, and Mansell in the cockpit, I don't think he can believe what has happened. He had that third place that he wanted, but it's all gone for nothing. We're going to see it again. Nigel Mansell in third place down the straight at almost 200 miles an hour. The rear tyre explodes, the car on three wheels bucking from side to side. brilliantly, Mansell controls the car in what could have been a simply horrifying accident, and finally skates to a harmless halt against the wall, and Nigel Mansell's championship hopes have disintegrated along with his rear tyre. What miserable fortune for the Englishman. It's all gone to nothing for him. His only chance of being champion now is if neither Nelson Piquet nor Alain Prost can win this race, but in fact they're in first and second places and they look set fair to have quite a battle for the lead. So the battle for the championship and the battle for the lead in the Australian Grand Prix is well and truly joined. Nelson Piquet, the leader in the only surviving Williams Honda in the race. Alain Prost in second place in the only surviving McLaren in the race, and very worrying that we've had 2 tyre explosions and Piquet's coming into the pits. Piquet is having a tyre stop, and that is no surprise at all. I guess that the team are so concerned about what has happened to both their own teammate and Rosberg that they brought him in. It's a quick stop, it's a good stop, 8.38 seconds that car was stationary, and Piquet comes storming out of the pits, but that has let Alain Prost go through and away into the lead. So the order, after all that intense excitement, after the tragedy for Nigel Mansell, after the cruel luck for Keke Rosberg, the order now is Alain Prost in the lead, in second place, and now a distant second place, Nelson Piquet, and all the rest of the field have been lapped. Amazingly, we have the Tyrrell Renaults of Philip Streff third and Martin Brundle fourth. In fifth place, because he's had a tyre stop too, is Stefan Johansson in the Ferrari, and our camera car, Johnny Dumfries, has come all the way up into sixth place ahead of René Arnoux and Philippe Alliot in the 2 Ligier Renaults. So in a packed 3 laps, the whole complexion of the race has changed, and Nigel Mansell must be miserably watching the closing stages of this race, hoping, a forlorn hope, that some sort of mechanical malady will strike both Alain Prost and Nelson Piquet, which is the only thing that will give him back the World Championship title. A forlorn hope indeed, because Alain Prost is looking very smooth and very comfortable at the front of this race. There's Johnny Dumfries back in the pits. Dumfries in for fresh rubber himself, and no doubt they have shared the concern about what has happened to the rear tyres on Rosberg's car and on Mansell's, and he's come in for fresh tyres. Alain Prost, who got his fresh tyres after only 31 laps because he had to come in with a punctured front tyre, he has his fresh rubber, although they've now done some 50 laps, and Alain Prost now merely has to reel off these closing laps. Nelson Piquet, meanwhile, on his fresh rubber is absolutely storming, but he's going to have to storm even faster than seems humanly possible in order to catch Alain Prost. Prost currently lapping Jonathan Palmer in the Zach Speed. Only the 2 championship challengers left on the same lap. Alain Prost first, Nelson Piquet second, and Piquet very definitely catching Prost. As I said, it's a difficult task, but Prost can't relax, and Piquet certainly hasn't given up yet. Piquet with his head tucked down in the cockpit, absolutely charging, clouting the curbs quite badly there. In fact, Piquet with nothing to lose and everything to gain by driving absolutely flat out. And of course, Piquet's tyres are extremely fresh. He's just had his tyre stop, that dramatic tyre stop which could have changed the whole complexion of the championship, because Piquet indeed was leading when the pit decided that, in view of what had happened to Nigel Mansell and indeed in view of what had happened to Keke Rosberg, they would prefer to bring Piquet in for a precautionary change of tyres. So Piquet on fresh rubber, Prost, on the other hand, on rubber that's now done some 50 laps of Adelaide. And Piquet, without doubt, the fastest man on the circuit at the moment. There's Johnny Dumfries, and there is Philip Streff. Streff holding a remarkable third place. Dumfries, a further lap down on Streff, is in sixth place, and just behind Dumfries you can see the other white car, which is the fourth place Tyrrell of Martin Brundle, and Brundle is being wound in by Stefan Johansson. So on this final lap for the leader, because now Alain Prost has started his final lap, it looks as though we could have quite a battle for third, fourth and fifth places. But what a tremendous achievement this has been for Alain Prost. He certainly had some luck here in Adelaide. Luck that was bad for Nigel Mansell has been good for Alain Prost. Nobody has won the World Championship 2 years running since Jack Brabham did it in 1959 and 1960. And barring a cruel blow of fortune on this final lap, it looks as though Alain Prost is going to do that. In fact, already the crowd are waving him home on this 82nd and final lap. Alain Prost with only just a few hundred yards between himself and the checkered flag, which will tell him that he is world champion for 1986, world champion for the second year running, and he's going to win his 25th Grand Prix, which makes him second equal in the all-time winners, Jackie Stewart 27, Jim Clark, and himself and Niki Lauda all on 25 when this race is finished. Alain Prost then coming up to the bottom gear, Foster's corner for the last time. When he's round this corner he will see the checkered flag. There it is. Alain Prost, 1986 champion of the world, wins the Adelaide Grand Prix. The McLaren mechanics go absolutely mad with delight, and no nonsense about a slowing down lap. Alain Prost's season has come to an end the way he wants. He's stopped his car, he's out of it, and he's already waving at the crowd with delight. The little Frenchman is world champion yet again. He will wear number 1 next year. A dramatic race here in Adelaide, and a change of order behind second man Nelson Piquet, because Johansson gets third as Brundle and Streff run out of fuel. And now let's hear from the new champion.
Alain Prost, many, many congratulations on winning your second World Championship. Does it feel as good as it should do, I think?
It's even better than I could think. much better than the one last year. And I cannot believe, it's fantastic. I knew that it was possible, I was always confident. I was confident about my car, about my team. They've done a fantastic job, but I knew that I need luck, a little bit of luck to win this championship, and I had some luck today. So it's really fantastic.
Was it planned that you should stop once for tyres?
Not really. We have planned to stop at about lap 40, 42, just in the middle of the race, but I had a puncture. I was obliged. I lost a lot of time coming in the pits, and they could not take the car up to change the tires because of the puncture, so I lost maybe 20 seconds. And I did not plan, honestly, to stop for tires. I did not know exactly, but I think it was the right choice to stop anyway.
You think it was a vital thing with the two tyres exploding on Keke's and Nigel's cars?
Yes, and I had a problem too. I had an explosion of the front tyre, so I don't know what happened today. But that's my luck. I'm very sorry for them. For Keke, because he has done a fantastic race, especially the beginning. And very hard first lap. It was fantastic, and I knew that he could help me, so I was very confident. I was very pleased that he was leading the race. And also I'm very sorry for Nigel, because I know how it is to lose the championship as the last race, and I'm very sorry for him. It must be very hard. I always felt very confident because I was quicker than both Williams. I did not take care at all about Keke, because I knew that being second, that means being first. In case, he said he could help me and let me pass at the end of the race if I need. And so I was confident, but I knew that it was quite difficult to pass them anyway.
And how are you going to celebrate this win now?
I don't know, but I have no problem at all to think about that. I know that there's many people is going to help me.
So, after 16 long races, by just 2 points, Alain Prost is the world champion for the second year running. Nigel Mansell has to make do with second, 1 point ahead of Nelson Piquet, with Ayrton Senna in fourth place and Stefan Johansson moving up to fifth. In the Constructors' Championship, of course, Williams-Honda have got everything well wrapped up. And now we already start to look ahead to 1987, because in April, in Brazil, it all starts all over again.